Look, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. 2025 probably kicked your ass. Maybe you scrolled through the year like it was a Netflix series you weren't really paying attention to. Maybe you set goals in January that died faster than your gym membership. Maybe you spent 12 months reacting to life instead of creating it. But here's the plot twist. 2026 doesn't care about your excuses, and neither do the ancient Stoics who figured out the game of life 2,000 years ago while you were busy checking your phone notifications. So buckle up, because today we're hacking your brain with philosophy that's older than your great-great-great-grandfather's grandfather and way more useful than anything you learned in high school. This isn't your college professor's boring lecture. This is Stoicism, the ultimate operating system for your mind. And by the end of this video, you're going to be wiser, smarter, stronger, and calmer than you've ever been. 2026? Yeah, it's your year. Let's get into it. Wisdom unlocked. Stop pretending you know everything. Let's start with wisdom, because frankly, you probably think you're smarter than you actually are. Don't worry, so did Socrates' entire city until he showed up and started asking questions that made everyone realize they were intellectual frauds. The Stoics took this concept and turned it into rocket fuel for personal growth. Marcus Aurelius, literal emperor of Rome, guy who could have just chilled on a golden throne eating grapes, spent his nights writing in his journal about how little he actually knew. Think about that. The most powerful man in the world was humble enough to admit he was still learning. Meanwhile, you won't even admit you were wrong about that thing you argued about on Twitter last week. Here's the Stoic truth bomb. Wisdom starts when you realize that your brain is basically a museum of other people's opinions that you've mistaken for your own thoughts. Epictetus, who went from slave to one of the most influential philosophers in history, said it perfectly. It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. Translation, your ego is the bouncer at the club of wisdom, and it's keeping all the good stuff out. So here's your first mission for 2026. Question everything you think you know. That political opinion you're so sure about? Maybe examine it. That assumption about your capabilities? Maybe test it. That belief that you can't change? Maybe challenge it. The Stoics understood that wisdom isn't about collecting facts like Pokemon cards. It's about constantly updating your mental software, deleting the buggy code, and staying curious like your life depends on it. Because, spoiler alert, your life quality absolutely depends on it. But wisdom without action is just intellectual masturbation. And speaking of action, let's talk about getting smarter in ways that actually matter. Intelligence amplified. Your brain is a muscle, not a trophy. Here's something nobody tells you. Intelligence isn't fixed. It's not some genetic lottery you either won or lost at birth. The Stoics knew this centuries before neuroscience proved neuroplasticity was real. Seneca, advisor to emperors, wealthy beyond measure, spent hours every single day reading, writing, and deliberately learning new things. And this was a guy who could have just coasted on his privilege. But here's where it gets interesting. The Stoics didn't just value book smarts, they valued practical intelligence, the kind that helps you navigate reality instead of just winning arguments at dinner parties. They called it practical wisdom, or phronosis, and it's the difference between knowing the right thing to do and actually doing it when your emotions are screaming at you to do the opposite. Think about the last time you made a decision you regretted. Maybe you sent that angry email. Maybe you ate that entire pizza. Maybe you stayed in that toxic situation way longer than you should have. In every case, you knew better. The information was there, but your practical intelligence, your ability to apply wisdom in the moment, was offline. Marcus Aurelius journaled about this constantly. He'd write things like, "Stop talking about what a good person is like and just be one." He understood that intelligence without execution is just mental decoration. It's wallpaper. Pretty, but ultimately useless. So how do you actually get smarter in 2026? The Stoic way is brutally simple. First, consume less, think more. Every Stoic philosopher spent significant time in contemplation, not scrolling, not consuming, but actually processing. When's the last time you sat in silence and just thought? I'll wait. Exactly. Your brain is drowning in input with zero processing time. It's like trying to build muscle by only eating protein but never working out. Doesn't work. Second, embrace difficulty. Seneca deliberately practiced poverty once a month, eating cheap food, wearing uncomfortable clothes, sleeping on the floor, to prove to himself that his worst-case scenario wasn't actually that bad. Modern translation, do hard things regularly. Learn that language, take that class, have that difficult conversation. Intelligence grows at the edge of your comfort zone, not in the middle of your couch. Third, study failure obsessively. The Stoics were reverse engineering experts. They didn't just study success, they studied failure, obstacles, and setbacks, because that's where the actual lessons hide. Epictetus literally taught his students to practice negative visualization, imagining everything going wrong so they'd be mentally prepared and could plan around obstacles. Your brain gets smarter by solving problems, not by avoiding them. Want to know the secret that separates actually intelligent people from people who just seem smart? Intelligent people know they're going to be wrong about stuff, and they're totally okay with it. They update their beliefs when presented with new information. They admit mistakes. They ask questions that make them look stupid because they'd rather be temporarily embarrassed than permanently ignorant. That's the Stoic intelligence upgrade: ego-free learning, practical application, and constant iteration. You're getting wiser, you're getting smarter, but none of that matters if you're weak when life throws hands. So let's talk about building strength that actually lasts. Fortitude forged. Strength isn't what you think it is. Pop quiz. What's stronger, a rigid oak tree or a flexible bamboo stalk? The oak looks impressive, sure. Thick trunk, solid presence, Instagram-worthy aesthetic. But when the storm comes, the oak snaps, the bamboo bends, survives, and bounces back. The Stoics understood this paradox 2 millennia before your life coach started posting quotes about resilience on LinkedIn. Here's what most people get wrong about strength. They think it's about being hard, unyielding, impenetrable. They build emotional walls, refuse to show vulnerability, and mistake stubbornness for fortitude. Then life inevitably hits them with something their rigid mindset can't handle, and they shatter like dropped glass. Stoic strength is different. It's tensile, flexible, adaptive, like bamboo. Marcus Aurelius called it inner citadel, this unshakable core that remains calm while everything external goes crazy. But here's the counterintuitive part. Building this strength requires accepting your weakness. Yeah, you heard that right. Weakness first, then strength. Epictetus, remember, former slave, told his students point blank, don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do happen, and you will go on well. This isn't motivational poster nonsense. This is tactical psychology. He's saying that true strength comes from accepting reality as it is, not as you wish it were, and then operating effectively within that reality. Let me give you a modern example. You lose your job. The weak response? Denial, victimhood, blaming the economy or your boss or the universe. It might feel like strength to rage against the injustice, but it's actually just burning energy on things you can't control. The Stoic response, okay, this happened, what's my move now? That's strength, accepting the hit and immediately strategizing your counter. Seneca took this even further. He said, a gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. He actively sought out difficulty because he understood that strength is built through resistance training. And I'm not just talking about biceps. Mental strength, emotional resilience, character development, all of it requires progressive overload, just like your muscles. So here's your strength protocol for 2026, straight from the Stoic playbook. First, deliberately face discomfort daily. Cold showers, difficult conversations, that project you've been avoiding, these are your resistance training for mental toughness. The Stoics called this voluntary hardship, and it's how you inoculate yourself against involuntary hardship later. Second, practice the dichotomy of control religiously. This is the big one. Write this down. I control my thoughts, my actions, my responses, and my effort. I do not control outcomes, other people's opinions, external events, or the past. Every time you catch yourself stressing about something outside your control, you're leaking strength. Plug the leak. Third, reframe every obstacle as training. Marcus Aurelius literally wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That job rejection? Training in resilience. That betrayal? Training in judgment of character. That failure? Training in humility and iteration. When you view obstacles as opponents in your training gym rather than as problems, you transform suffering into strength. But here's the part most people miss. Stoic strength isn't about becoming emotionless. That's a myth perpetuated by people who never actually read the Stoics. Marcus Aurelius cried when his tutor died. Seneca wrote beautiful, emotional letters to his friends. These guys felt deeply. They just didn't let those feelings drive the car. They acknowledged emotions, examined them, and then chose their response consciously. That's real strength. Not the absence of feeling, but mastery over your reactions. Not rigidity, but resilience. Not avoiding pain, but transforming it into power. You're wise, you're smart, you're strong, but if you're anxious, stressed, and mentally chaotic, none of it sticks. So finally, let's unlock the superpower of being genuinely, deeply calm. Tranquility achieved, the ancient antidote to modern chaos. Let's address the elephant in the room. Your mind is probably a dumpster fire of anxiety, and you're so used to it that you've started calling it normal. You wake up already stressed about the day ahead, you scroll through social media and absorb everyone else's problems like an emotional sponge. You go to bed with your brain still running at 4,000 RPM, replaying conversations from 3 years ago and catastrophizing about futures that'll never happen. The Stoics would look at modern life and be like, yeah, we solved this problem in 300 BC. Where have you been? Marcus Aurelius, again running an empire, dealing with plagues, wars, and political intrigue, would start his mornings writing things like, "Today I shall be meeting with an interfering, ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, jealous, and surly person." Not exactly a gratitude journal entry, right? But here's the genius. By preemptively accepting that his day would include difficult people, he removed the element of surprise. No surprise, no stress spike. Pure strategic calm. This is called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils, and it's the opposite of toxic positivity. Instead of pretending everything will be perfect and then freaking out when it isn't, you mentally rehearse things going wrong so that when they do, you're like, "Yep, saw that coming. Next." Seneca took this to another level. He'd spend time vividly imagining losing everything he owned, everyone he loved, even his own life. Sounds dark, right? But he wasn't being morbid. He was inoculating himself against catastrophic thinking. Because once you've mentally experienced your worst-case scenario and realized you'd survive it, suddenly your daily stressors become laughably small. Think about what stresses you out. Traffic, a passive-aggressive email, someone being wrong on the internet, your food order being slightly wrong. Now, imagine explaining these stressors to someone who's survived actual war, famine, or persecution. They'd be confused as to why you're upset. The Stoics understood that most of our suffering comes not from events themselves, but from our judgment of events. Epictetus, broken man, this philosophy thing, said it clearest: people are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of them. That annoying coworker didn't ruin your day. Your interpretation of their behavior did. That traffic jam didn't stress you out. Your belief that you shouldn't have to wait did. This is the calm code. Separate facts from interpretations, events from judgments, reality from your stories about reality. Here's your tranquility training for 2026. First, practice the view from above. Marcus Aurelius would mentally zoom out, imagining himself from above, then his city, then his country, then Earth, then the cosmos, until his problems looked appropriately small. Modern version? When you're stressed, literally imagine a satellite view of your location, then zoom out further. That argument you had? Invisible from space. That embarrassing moment? doesn't even register in the cosmic scale. This isn't about minimizing real problems, it's about right-sizing your emotional response. Second, implement the Stoic pause. Between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space lies your freedom. Most people react instantly. Someone criticizes them, they immediately defend. Someone cuts them off in traffic, they immediately rage. Start inserting a pause. 3 seconds. 1 breath. In that gap, you choose your response instead of defaulting to your programming. This single habit will change your entire life. Third, practice negative visualization daily, but with a twist. Don't just imagine things going wrong, imagine losing what you currently have, your health, your relationships, your freedom. Then open your eyes and realize you still have these things. Boom! Instant gratitude, instant calm. The Stoics understood that we stress about gaining new things while taking current things for granted. Flip that script. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Read that again. Most of your stress is about things that haven't happened and probably never will. You're terrified of future pains that exist only in your mind. The Stoics would tell you to stay ruthlessly present. Deal with actual problems when they actually arrive, not before. But here's the deepest level of Stoic calm, understanding that you're going to die and making peace with it. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of his mortality, not to be depressed, but to stay focused on what matters. When you truly internalize that your time is finite, you stop sweating the small stuff. That grudge you're holding seems silly when you've got maybe 40 more years if you're lucky. That fear of embarrassment? Who cares? You'll be dead in a few decades and no one will remember anyway. This isn't nihilism, it's the opposite. It's squeezing every drop of meaning from your finite existence by not wasting it on anxiety, stress, and mental chaos. It's choosing calm not because everything's perfect, but because you refuse to let external chaos dictate your internal state. So, you're building wisdom, intelligence, strength, and calm. But how do you actually implement all this without forgetting it by tomorrow? Let's talk about the system. The implementation. Stoicism isn't philosophy, it's practice. Here's where most people screw up with Stoicism. They read the quotes, feel inspired for 36 hours, then completely forget everything when real life stress tests them. They treat it like motivation instead of what it actually is, an operating system that requires installation, updates, and daily maintenance. The ancient Stoics didn't just think about this stuff, they drilled it like athletes drill fundamentals. Marcus Aurelius journaled every single day. Epictetus made his students practice responses to scenarios before they happened. Seneca wrote letters examining his daily actions every evening. These guys were systematic because they knew that philosophy without practice is just intellectual entertainment. So let's build your 2026 Stoic operating system. Morning launch sequence. Before you touch your phone, before you check email, before you do anything, spend 10 minutes on this. Review your principles. What do you control today? Only your thoughts, actions, responses, and effort. What don't you control? Everything else. Premeditate obstacles. What difficult people or situations might you face? How will you respond with wisdom instead of reaction? Set intentions. What virtues will you practice today? Patience, courage, justice, wisdom. Marcus Aurelius did this every morning, and he was literally the most powerful human on the planet. You can spare 10 minutes. Midday recalibration. At some point midday, pause. Check your mental state. Are you stressed about things outside your control? Course correct. Did you react instead of respond to something? Note it. Are you living according to your principles or just surviving? Adjust. This is your system check, like a pilot checking instruments mid-flight. Evening debrief. Seneca's favorite practice. Before bed, review your entire day like you're watching game film. What did you do well? Where did you fail? Where did you let emotions drive instead of reason? Where did you practice virtue? Be brutally honest. No one's reading this but you. The point isn't to beat yourself up, it's to identify patterns and improve. But here's the critical piece most people miss. You need to externalize these practices. Don't just think about them, write them down. The Stoics were prolific journal writers because they understood that thoughts become real when you transform them from mental fog into concrete words on a page. Get a journal. Not a fancy one. Marcus Aurelius used whatever was available. Every morning, write your intentions. Every evening, write your review. Every time you face an obstacle, write your Stoic response to it. This isn't Instagram caption material. This is raw, unfiltered, honest examination of your life. The obstacle log. Here's a game-changing practice. Keep a running log of every obstacle you face and how you apply Stoic principles to it. Missed deadline? Write it down. Note what was in your control, your preparation, your effort, and what wasn't, the client's last-minute changes. Document your response. Did you react emotionally or respond rationally? Over time, you'll see patterns, you'll see progress, you'll build a personal manual for handling your specific challenges. The dichotomy drill. Multiple times daily, practice this. When something happens, immediately ask, is this in my control? If yes, take action. If no, accept and adapt. This should become automatic, like checking your mirrors while driving. Someone insulted you? Not in your control. Your response? Totally in your control. Train this reflex until it's faster than your emotional reaction. The virtue scorecard. The Stoics identified 4 cardinal virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. Each evening, rate yourself 1 to 10 on each. Be honest. Where did you show wisdom today? Where did you lack courage? Where did you act unjustly or intemperately? This isn't about perfection, it's about conscious calibration. You can't improve what you don't measure. You've got the practices, but practices alone won't save you when life really punches you in the face. You need to understand the deeper principles that make this whole system unbreakable. The foundations, core principles that make everything else work. Let's go deeper than surface-level Stoicism. Let's talk about the principles that, once you truly internalize them, fundamentally change how you experience reality. Principle 1. You are not your thoughts. This is the big one that breaks most people's brains. You think you are your thoughts, but you're not. You're the observer of your thoughts. Marcus Aurelius' word, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Here's what this actually means in practice. Thoughts appear in your consciousness like clouds in the sky. Some are dark and stormy. Some are light and pleasant. But you're not the clouds. You're the sky. The clouds pass through. You remain. So when an anxious thought appears, I'm going to fail this presentation, you don't have to identify with it. You can observe it. Interesting. My mind just generated a fearful prediction about the future. See the difference? One makes you the victim of your thoughts. The other makes you the conscious observer of mental processes. The Stoics trained this by constantly creating distance between themselves and their automatic mental reactions. Every time you catch yourself spiraling, pause and think, my mind is currently generating anxious thoughts about X. Boom. Instant separation. Instant power. Principle 2. Nature doesn't care about fairness. This one stings, but it's liberating once you accept it. The universe isn't fair. It never was, it never will be. Bad things happen to good people. Idiots succeed. Hard work sometimes doesn't pay off. Talented people die young. None of it's fair. Marcus Aurelius, despite being emperor, got dealt a brutal hand. His wife probably cheated on him. His children died. He dealt with constant illness. Plagues ravaged his empire. Wars never ended. And yet he wrote some of the most positive, accepting philosophy in human history. How? Because he stopped demanding that life be fair and started dealing with life as it actually is. Epictetus said, don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do happen. This isn't passivity, it's radical acceptance of reality as the starting point for effective action. You can rage against unfairness, or you can accept it exists and strategize around it. Only one of these options actually helps you. Principle 3. Amor fati, love your fate. This is the ultimate Stoic principle, and it sounds insane until you understand it. Amor fati means loving your fate, not just accepting what happens, but actively loving it, including the hardships. Nietzsche, not a Stoic but heavily influenced by them, said, "My formula for greatness in a human being is amor fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity." Before you think this is just toxic positivity with a Latin name, understand what it actually means. It's not about pretending bad things are good. It's about recognizing that every single thing that's happened to you, including the terrible stuff, has made you who you are. You can wish it hadn't happened, but then you'd be wishing you were a different person, and you're the only person you can actually be. Marcus Aurelius put it perfectly. A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it. Everything that happens to you is fuel. The question is whether you'll let it burn you up or use it to generate light and heat. This principle transforms victimhood into power. That betrayal that crushed you, it taught you discernment. That failure that humiliated you, it taught you humility and grit. That loss that broke your heart, it taught you the depth of love and the importance of presence. Loving your fate doesn't mean being happy about everything. It means integrating everything into your story as a necessary chapter, not an unfortunate accident. These principles are the foundation, but you need to know what you're building towards. Let's talk about the ultimate goal of Stoicism, the thing all these practices are designed to create. The destination, eudaimonia, and the good life. The Stoics weren't practicing philosophy for fun. They had a specific target, eudaimonia. Usually translated as happiness, but that's misleading. Better translations, flourishing, fulfillment, living well, being in flow with your highest nature. Eudaimonia isn't about feeling good all the time. It's not about pleasure, comfort, or avoiding pain. It's about living with excellence, with arete, and aligning your actions with virtue, regardless of external circumstances. Here's how Epictetus explained it. There is only one way to happiness, and that is to cease worrying about things which are beyond the power of our will. Notice he didn't say, get everything you want or avoid all problems. He said, stop fighting with reality and focus on what you actually control. The Stoic good life looks like this. You wake up clear-headed and purposeful, not anxious and reactive. You face challenges with calm strategy instead of emotional chaos. You treat people with justice and kindness because it aligns with your principles, not because you want something from them. You pursue excellence in your work, not for external validation, because it's the right use of your capacities. You accept setbacks without devastation. You enjoy success without attachment. You live each day consciously, knowing it might be your last, and you make it count. That's eudaimonia. That's the goal. And here's the kicker. It's completely within your control. Your happiness doesn't depend on getting the job, finding the relationship, making the money, or achieving the status. Those things are outside your control. Your happiness depends entirely on living virtuously, with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, regardless of what life throws at you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Not the quality of your circumstances, the quality of your thoughts." That's simultaneously the most empowering and most demanding truth you'll ever encounter. Because it means you can't blame anyone or anything for your suffering. Not your past, not your circumstances, not other people. You can acknowledge that external things affect you, but your interpretation, your response, your character, that's all you. So you understand the principles and the goal, but how do you maintain this when life gets really hard, when philosophy meets reality head-on? Let's talk about crisis management, Stoic style. Stress testing the system, Stoicism in the storm. Theory is beautiful until life punches you in the face. So let's talk about how Stoicism actually performs under pressure, the kind of pressure that makes motivational quotes look like jokes. The Stoics weren't armchair philosophers. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations during military campaigns, surrounded by death and disease. Epictetus developed his philosophy while enslaved. Seneca faced exile and eventually forced suicide. These guys beta-tested their principles in the absolute worst conditions, and the system held. Here's how you apply Stoicism when things go catastrophically wrong. Step 1. Immediate reality acceptance. Something terrible happens. You get fired. Someone dies. You get betrayed. Your first instinct is denial, or rage, or panic. The Stoic move, immediate, brutal acceptance of the fact. Not acceptance that it's good, acceptance that it's real. Say it out loud. This happened. This is real. This is now part of my reality. No, this can't be happening, or why me? Those questions waste energy. The event already happened. Wishing it didn't is like wishing gravity worked differently. Pointless. Marcus Aurelius, objective judgment, now, at this very moment. Unselfish action, now, at this very moment. Willing acceptance, now, at this very moment, of all external events. That's the protocol. Accept, then act. Step 2. Ruthless control sorting. In crisis, your brain wants to spin in every direction. The Stoic move is to immediately sort everything into two categories: what you control and what you don't. Lost your job? You don't control the decision. You do control how you spend your time now, who you reach out to, what skills you develop, how you budget, and your attitude. Focus exclusively on your column. Let the other column go. This sounds simple, but it's incredibly difficult when emotions are high. That's why you practice it daily with small things, so when the big crisis hits, the sorting is automatic. Step 3. Worst-case analysis. This is Seneca's move. Ask yourself, what's the absolute worst that could happen here? Then sit with that scenario. Really imagine it. Feel it. Now ask, could I survive it? Almost always the answer is yes. Once you realize you could survive even the worst-case scenario, the present crisis becomes less overwhelming. You're not catastrophizing, you're defanging catastrophe by facing it directly. Step 4. Find the opportunity. This is the one that sounds like toxic positivity, but isn't. Marcus Aurelius, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Every crisis contains hidden opportunities, not because the universe is kind, but because obstacles force adaptation, and adaptation drives growth. Lost your job? Opportunity to pivot careers, start that business, develop new skills. Relationship ended? Opportunity to rediscover yourself, raise your standards, learn from patterns. You're not pretending the crisis is good, you're refusing to waste the crisis. There's a massive difference. Step 5. Take the first small action. Paralysis is the enemy in crisis. The Stoic solution: identify the smallest possible action in your control and take it immediately. Just got devastating news? Drink water, stand up, take a walk, call one supportive person. These micro-actions break paralysis and rebuild your sense of agency. Then chain these actions. One small controlled action leads to the next. You're not solving the whole crisis today. You're solving the next 5 minutes, then the next hour, then the next day. Crisis management is crucial, but what about the long game? How do you apply Stoicism to build a life that's worth living over years and decades? Let's talk about legacy and long-term vision.
Building the long game. Stoic strategy for your life. Here's what separates people who dabble in Stoicism from people who transform their entire existence with it. Long-term strategic thinking combined with daily tactical execution. The Stoics were obsessed with legacy, not in the egotistical I want to be remembered way, but in the how am I using my limited time way. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that he'd be dead soon and forgotten eventually, so he better make his actions count while he's here. Time as ultimate resource. Seneca went hard on this topic. He wrote an entire essay called On the Shortness of Life, and it reads like he's personally attacking your Netflix habits 2,000 years in advance. His core point: life isn't short, you're just wasting most of it. You give away your time like it's unlimited, then complain you don't have enough. You'll fiercely protect your money and property, but you'll let anyone steal your time with meaningless meetings, toxic relationships, and mindless scrolling. Here's your Stoic time audit for 2026. Track 1 week honestly. Every hour, what are you doing? Then ask, is this activity aligned with my principles and goals, or am I just killing time until I die? Sounds harsh, but that's exactly what you're doing if you're not intentional. The Stoic approach to time: every hour is a deposit you're making in the bank of your life. You can't get refunds, you can't earn interest, you just spend it. The question is whether you're buying something worthwhile or just setting money on fire. Memento mori. You're going to die. The Stoics kept skulls on their desks. They meditated on death daily. They started conversations with, "If I die tomorrow." This wasn't morbid depression, it was radical clarity. When you truly internalize your mortality, 3 things happen. First, petty concerns evaporate. That grudge? Pointless. That fear of what people think? Irrelevant. That need to be right? Silly. You've got maybe 30,000 days if you're lucky. Why waste any of them on nonsense? Second, relationships deepen. When you realize every conversation with someone might be your last, you show up differently. You listen better. You speak more truthfully. You express appreciation. You resolve conflicts instead of letting them fester. Third, action accelerates. That project you've been putting off, that risk you've been avoiding, that conversation you need to have, when death is real to you, someday becomes now, because someday might never come. Marcus Aurelius: you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. That's not a depressing thought. It's the most clarifying thought possible. Building your Stoic life architecture. Here's how to structure your life for long-term Stoic success. Define your principles, not goals, principles. Goals change, principles endure. What do you stand for? What virtues guide you? What would you do even if no one was watching and you got no credit? Write these down. These are your constitution. Design your environment. The Stoics understood that willpower is finite, but environment is constant. Structure your life to make virtue easy and vice difficult. Want to read more? Put books everywhere and delete social media apps. Want to exercise? Sleep in your gym clothes. Your environment should be aligned with your principles. Choose your companions. Seneca: associate with people who are likely to improve you. You become the average of the people you spend time with. The Stoics were ruthless about this. Toxic people? Minimize or eliminate. Energy vampires? Create distance. Find people who challenge you to be better, not who enable your worst habits. Create non-negotiables. Identify the daily practices that keep you Stoic: journaling, meditation, exercise, reading, and make them non-negotiable. Not, "I'll do them when I have time." You'll never have time. Schedule them like life-saving medication, because that's what they are. Review and adjust. Marcus Aurelius constantly adjusted his thinking based on new information and experiences. Your Stoic practice should evolve. Monthly reviews. What's working? What's not? What needs to change? Philosophy isn't static, it's a living system. You've got the theory, the practices, the crisis management, and the long-term strategy, but there's one more element that ties everything together, the element most people completely miss about Stoicism. Let's talk about connection and community.
The social dimension. You can't be Stoic alone. Here's a massive misconception. Stoicism is about being a lone wolf, emotionally distant, needing no one. Completely wrong. The Stoics were deeply social beings who understood that humans are, as Aristotle said, social animals. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, they all emphasized our connection to others. Marcus Aurelius: We were born to work together like feet, hands, and eyes, like the two rows of teeth, upper and lower. To obstruct each other is unnatural. He saw humanity as a single organism. Your well-being and others' well-being are interconnected. But here's the Stoic twist. You connect with others from a place of strength, not neediness. You don't require their approval for your happiness. You don't need them to complete you. But you recognize that contributing to the common good, treating people justly, and engaging in meaningful relationships is part of living virtuously. The justice principle. Justice was one of the 4 cardinal virtues for the Stoics, and it meant more than just being fair. It meant recognizing your role in the larger community and fulfilling it well. You have obligations to others, not because it benefits you, but because it's the right thing to do. Seneca spent enormous amounts of money helping people, not for status, but because he believed in contributing to society. Marcus Aurelius worked himself to death serving an empire, not because he loved power, but because he felt obligated to serve well. Modern application? Your work isn't just about your paycheck. It's about contributing value to others. Your relationships aren't just about what you get, they're about what you give. Your life isn't just about your personal happiness, it's about how you impact your community. This isn't self-sacrifice, it's enlightened self-interest. When you contribute to your community's well-being, you benefit too. When you treat people justly, you create a more just environment for yourself. When you help others grow, you grow too. The Stoic circle of concern. Heracles, a Stoic philosopher, described concentric circles. You in the center, then family, then friends, then community, then country, then all of humanity. The Stoic goal is to progressively draw the circles in, to extend the care you have for yourself to wider and wider groups. You can't care for everyone equally, you're not infinite, but you can progressively expand your circle of genuine concern. Start with yourself. If you're not okay, you can't help anyone. Then family, then friends, then colleagues, then strangers, then even people who oppose you. This isn't naive optimism, it's strategic compassion. Marcus Aurelius dealt with enemies daily, yet he wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like that." He extended understanding even to people who opposed him because he understood they were acting according to their nature and understanding, just like everyone else. Finding your Stoic community. The ancient Stoics had schools, communities, and regular discussions. You need this too. Find people who are seriously practicing Stoicism or similar philosophies. Join a group, online or in person. Have regular philosophical discussions. Challenge each other. Hold each other accountable. Why? Because philosophy practiced alone becomes just thoughts. Philosophy practiced in community becomes accountability, feedback, and reinforcement. The Stoics knew this. That's why they taught students, wrote letters to friends, and engaged in constant dialogue. Your Stoic community doesn't have to be formally Stoic. It's anyone committed to growth, virtue, and truth. Find them, connect with them, push each other to be better. Almost done. You've got the complete Stoic operating system. But now comes the hardest part, actually implementing all of this starting in 2026. Let's talk about the first 30 days. The 30-day Stoic Sprint, your launch sequence for 2026. Knowledge without execution is useless. You know this. The Stoics knew this. So here's your specific, actionable 30-day plan to install Stoicism as your operating system. No vague, try to be more Stoic garbage. Specific daily actions. Days 1 to 7, Foundation Week. Day 1, get a journal. Physical, digital, doesn't matter. This is your philosophical gym. Write your first entry. What do I control in my life? What don't I control? Make 2 columns. Be ruthlessly honest. Day 2, morning launch sequence begins. Before phone, before anything, 10 minutes. Write 3 potential obstacles you'll face today and how you'll respond with virtue instead of reaction. Day 3, add the evening debrief. Before bed, review the day. What went well? What didn't? Where did you live according to principles? Where did you fail? No judgment, just data. Day 4, implement the Stoic pause. Every time something triggers an emotional reaction, pause for 3 seconds before responding. Just 3 seconds. Count them. Then choose your response. Practice negative visualization. Spend 5 minutes imagining losing something important to you. Then open your eyes and appreciate that you still have it. Feel the gratitude. Day 6. Identify your 3 core principles. What do you stand for? Write them down. These guide all decisions. Day 7. Review week 1. What practices are working? What's challenging? Adjust. Philosophy is experimental, not dogmatic. Days 8 to 14. Integration week. Day 8. Start tracking your virtues daily. Rate yourself 1 to 10 on wisdom, courage, justice, temperance. Don't judge the scores, just track them. Day 9. Implement environmental design. Remove one thing from your environment that undermines your principles. Add one thing that supports them. Day 10. Practice the view from above. When stressed, mentally zoom out until your problem looks appropriately small. Do this at least 3 times today. Day 11. Write a letter to yourself about your mortality. If I died tomorrow, what would I regret not doing? Then commit to one thing from that list. Day 12. Identify one relationship that needs attention. Reach out, connect deeply, practice being present. Day 13. Choose one voluntary hardship to practice regularly. Cold showers, difficult conversations, challenging exercise. Start today. Day 14. Review week 2. Notice what's changing? Your reactions should be slower, your awareness higher, your emotional volatility decreasing. Days 15 to 21. Deepening week. Day 15. Start reading primary Stoic texts. Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, Epictetus' Enchiridiae, Seneca's letters, even just a few pages daily. Day 16. Practice amor fati. Write about a past hardship and how it made you who you are. Find the value in it. Day 17. Do a time audit. Track 24 hours honestly. How much aligns with your principles? How much is wasted? Design corrections. Day 18. Practice responding versus reacting. When someone irritates you, instead of reacting, ask, what virtue does this situation call for? Then embody it. Day 19. Implement the obstacle log. Every challenge you face, write it down and document your Stoic response. You're building a personal manual. Day 20. Connect with your Stoic community or find one. Join a group, forum, or start meeting with like-minded friends regularly. Day 21. Review week 3. You're halfway through. Notice how your baseline has shifted? Things that triggered you before might not now. That's progress. Days 22 to 29. Solidification week. Day 22. Refine your morning routine. By now, you know what works. Make it tighter, more efficient, more aligned. Day 23. Practice extensive negative visualization. Imagine losing everything. Then realize you're capable of surviving even that. Feel your strength. Day 24. Review your principles from day 6. Do they still fit? Refine them. Your philosophy should evolve with your understanding. Day 25. Have a difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Practice courage. Use your Stoic tools. Speak truth with compassion. Day 26. Design your long-term Stoic practice. What will you do daily, weekly, monthly? Create a sustainable system, not a sprint. Day 27. Practice extensive journaling. Write about your progress. What's changed? What hasn't? What needs more work? Day 28. Do something genuinely difficult that aligns with your principles. Take a risk. Face a fear. Build your courage muscle. Day 29. Connect deeply with someone important to you. Practice presence, listening, and authentic engagement. Strengthen your social foundation. Day 30. Complete month review. Write extensively about what you've learned, how you've changed, and what you're committed to continuing. This is your baseline. You are now a practicing Stoic. You've completed the 30-day sprint, but Stoicism isn't a 30-day challenge, it's a lifetime practice. So let's talk about maintaining this long-term and avoiding the pitfalls that derail most people.
Sustaining the practice. How to stay Stoic when life gets comfortable. Here's the pattern that kills most people's Stoic practice. They start strong. Life gets better. They get comfortable. They stop practicing. Life gets hard again. They scramble back to the principles. This cycle repeats forever. The Stoics warned against this. Seneca said, "Our plans miscarry because they have no aim.
When a man does not know what harbor he is making for, no wind is the right wind. Your Stoic practice needs to be continuous, regardless of whether life is hard or easy. Actually, it needs to be stronger when life is easy, because that's when you're most vulnerable to losing your edge. The comfort trap. When things are going well, you stop practicing negative visualization because it feels unnecessary. You stop journaling because you don't think you need it. You stop implementing voluntary hardship because life is already comfortable. This is precisely backward. Marcus Aurelius practiced Stoicism hardest during peacetime because he knew war was coming. Seneca practiced poverty during wealth because he knew fortune could turn. Modern application. When you get the promotion, that's when you intensify your practice. When the relationship is good, that's when you deepen your appreciation and preparation for potential loss. When you're healthy, that's when you imagine illness and appreciate your current state. The evolution requirement. Your Stoic practice must evolve as you evolve. What worked in month 1 might not work in month 12. The Stoics constantly refined their philosophy based on experience. Every 3 months, do a comprehensive review. What practices are still serving you? What needs to change? What new challenges require new approaches? How has your understanding deepened? Philosophy is alive. Keep it that way. The community anchor. Solo practice drifts. Community practice holds. Stay connected to other people practicing Stoicism or similar philosophies. Have regular discussions, share challenges, hold each other accountable. The ancient Stoics did this constantly: letters, dialogues, teaching. You need the same structure in modern form. The teaching principle. One of the best ways to deepen your practice? Teach it. Explain Stoic principles to friends. Share what you're learning. Write about it. Create content around it. Teaching forces you to clarify your understanding, identify gaps, and articulate concepts precisely. Plus, it helps others, which aligns with the Stoic principle of contributing to the common good. All right, you've got everything: the complete system, the 30-day launch, the long-term strategy. But there's one final piece, the piece that separates people who read this and forget it from people who actually transform their lives with it. Let's talk about commitment. The final piece, your Stoic commitment to 2026. Here's the truth. Everything I've shared is useless if you don't commit. Not, I'll try this, not, this sounds interesting. Actual commitment. The kind where you decide this is who you are now, not just something you're experimenting with. The Stoics didn't dabble. Marcus Aurelius didn't journal occasionally when he felt like it. Epictetus didn't teach philosophy as a side hobby. Seneca didn't practice Stoicism when it was convenient. These guys went all in because they understood that half-hearted philosophy produces half-hearted results. So, right now, before you click to the next video, before you scroll to the next piece of content, before you return to the endless buffet of information that never transforms into action, make a decision. Are you all in on becoming wiser, smarter, stronger, and calmer in 2026? Or are you just entertaining the idea? Because here's what all in looks like. You journal every single day, even when you don't feel like it. You practice the morning and evening routines without negotiation. You implement the Stoic pause in every triggered moment. You face your voluntary hardships regularly. You track your virtues honestly. You read the primary texts. You engage with community. You refine your practice continuously. You don't do it perfectly. Perfection isn't the goal, but you do it consistently. You show up. You practice. You fall. You get up. You practice more. That's the commitment, not perfection, persistence. Marcus Aurelius faced unimaginable challenges: plagues, wars, betrayals, loss. He could have quit his Stoic practice 1,000 times. This isn't working. Life is too hard. What's the point? But he didn't. He showed up to his journal every night, processed his day, realigned with his principles, and continued. That's what made him one of the greatest emperors in history and one of the most influential philosophers who ever lived. Not talent, not luck, not perfect circumstances, commitment to the practice regardless of circumstances. Your 2026 declaration. So here's what I want you to do right now, not later, now. Say this out loud and mean it. 2026 is my year. I commit to becoming wiser by questioning my assumptions daily. I commit to becoming smarter by learning with humility and applying with discipline. I commit to becoming stronger by facing difficulty deliberately and extracting value from every obstacle. I commit to becoming calmer by mastering my reactions and accepting what I cannot control. I will journal daily. I will practice the principles. I will build the life I want from the inside out. This isn't a maybe. This is who I am now. Feel that? That's the shift from consumer of philosophy to practitioner of philosophy. The stakes. One more thing before we close. Let's be honest about what's at stake here. If you don't commit to this, if you let this be just another inspiring video you watched and forgot, 2026 will be like every other year. You'll react instead of respond. You'll stress about things you can't control. You'll waste time on meaningless stuff. You'll live below your potential. You'll reach December 2026 with regrets. But if you commit, if you actually implement this system, everything changes. You become the calm person in the storm, the wise voice in the room, the strong presence people rely on, the strategic thinker who navigates complexity with clarity. You build a life of meaning, purpose, and genuine fulfillment. The Stoics proved it's possible. They did it in circumstances far harder than yours. The philosophy works. The practices work. The system works. The only question is, will you work it? All right, Stoics, or future Stoics, let's bring this home. 2026 is sitting there, waiting for you. 12 months, 52 weeks, 365 days. Each one an opportunity to practice, to grow, to become the person you're capable of being. The ancient Stoics gave us the blueprint. Marcus Aurelius showed us how to lead with wisdom while facing chaos. Epictetus showed us how to find freedom regardless of external circumstances. Seneca showed us how to live richly regardless of fortune. Now it's your turn. You've got the wisdom principles. Question everything, stay humble, never stop learning. You've got the intelligence upgrades. Think more, consume less, embrace difficulty, study failure. You've got the strength protocols, voluntary hardship, dichotomy of control, obstacles as training. You've got the calm code, premeditatio malorum, stoic pause, view from above, acceptance of mortality. You've got the implementation system, morning launch, midday calibration, evening debrief. You've got the crisis management, reality acceptance, control sorting, worst case analysis. You've got the long-term strategy, time audits, memento mori, environmental design. You've got the 30-day sprint to launch it all. Everything you need is right here. The only missing ingredient, your commitment. So here's my challenge to you. Don't just watch this video and move on. Take action right now. Grab a journal or open a notes app. Write today's date. Write day 1 of my Stoic practice. Then write your 3 principles. Then write 3 potential obstacles you'll face tomorrow and how you'll respond with virtue. That's it. That's the first step. Everything else builds from there. And if you do this, if you commit, if you practice, if you persist, I promise you that 12 months from now, you'll look back at today as the day everything changed. The day you stopped being a victim of circumstances and became the architect of your character. The day you stopped reacting to life and started creating it. 2026 is your year. Not because the universe owes you anything, not because life will suddenly get easy, but because you're going to show up with wisdom, intelligence, strength, and calm every single day. And that combination is unstoppable. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." So stop arguing, stop planning, stop preparing. Be one, starting right now. If this resonated with you, smash that like button. Let's spread Stoic wisdom to everyone who needs it in 2026. Subscribe if you want more philosophy that actually changes your life, instead of just sounding good. And drop a comment telling me what your first Stoic commitment is going to be. What's the one practice you're implementing today? Remember, the obstacle is the way. The impediment to action advances action, and 2026 is yours for the taking. Now get out there and be wiser, be smarter, be stronger, be calmer. Let's make this year legendary.